Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel for Molly Wally Woodworking. This video is focused on how I made these hexagon shelves. They are made from 4/4 or 1-inch thick ash and have walnut splines. The first step, as with most woodworking projects, is to mill all of my lumber to its final dimensions. I ran the ash through the planer to get it to its final thickness of just over 3/4 of an inch. It was already really straight, so I skipped face jointing it. After I got everything down to its final thickness, I headed over to the jointer to get a nice straight edge on one side. It only took a few passes and it was good to go. This ash that I got was really good quality, coming right from the store. I wanted the shelves to come off of the wall 5.5 inches, so after I got that straight edge from the jointer, I moved on to this table saw to rip each board to its final width. After my first video, I got some good advice from Jesse over at Penalty Box Woodshop on trying to shoot from different angles when completing tasks. It's still a work in progress on making sure the camera's at the right angle, but it was fun to try new things. While I don't agree with his choice of NHL team he cheers for, he definitely has some great insights into woodworking. Go check out his page, I'll put a link in the description below. Once the boards were ripped to the right width, I changed my saw blade over to a crosscut blade and then used my digital angle box to get my blade to 60 degrees. That means that the inside of the cut is 30 degrees, which is the angle I need to complete the hexagon. I set up an artificial fence to ensure that the wood won't bind between the blade and the real fence, which would cause kickback and would hurt a lot. Grabbed my miter gauge to keep everything square and started the cuts. Now that I had all of my pieces cut, I could move on to the glue up. For this, I used the old masking tape trick to get everything in place. I used 2 strips of tape and then placed the pieces on top, making sure that everything was lined up nice and tight. Then I applied glue to each joint and rolled it up, securing the open ends with tape. This allows the pieces to sit in the right place while I got the strap clamp secured. The strap clamp is also just a tie-down strap from my truck, so it's definitely nothing fancy. This works really well at tightening everything up. Our dog Wyatt was in the background keeping a close eye, making sure that I didn't screw anything up at this point. After the glue had dried, I removed the strap and the tape, and then it needed to reinforce each joint. Because these are all end grain to end grain joints, I needed to add some splines. I heard someone describe gluing end grain joints as like gluing the ends of straws together. A lot of the glue gets pushed down into the grain, so there really isn't much holding it together. While these shelves aren't designed to hold anything too heavy, the splines gave me peace of mind and also look really nice. To cut the holes for the splines, I decided to use my biscuit joiner, which you just saw in that last clip, instead of building a table saw jig. I wish I could take credit for this idea, but I saw Jason from Bent's Woodworking do it over the summer and thought I would give it a shot. It worked really well and was super fast at getting all 60 of these splines cut. I then grabbed some walnut cutoffs I had laying around the shop and cut them into small squares to use as splines, filled up my glue bot and got working at adding some Type-On 3 to each cutout and then inserting the splines. Stacked them all up and let them dry for a few hours. Next, I needed to cut the splines, and I thought about using a flush cut saw and then thought about having to cut 60 of these things and shivered. So I used my table saw and carefully got as close to the shelf as I was comfortable with. Once I had given each of them a little haircut, I used my sander to flatten out the remaining bits and continued the sanding process down to a 180 grit. I also sprayed each one with water to help raise the grain and then continued to sand until 220. Finally, now that I had everything sanded to 220, it was time for my favorite part of any project, where I get to apply the finish. The grain really pops in this ash, and the contrast with the walnut splines looks fantastic. I don't think that as long as I'm doing this woodworking thing, applying the finish will ever get old. It's always the best part of any project. With the finish dry, I took the shelves upstairs to try to take some good pictures of them. These will end up in a client's house, and I can't wait to see how she configures them in her own space. I'm really proud of the way these turned out, and I really hope that you hit that subscribe button down below and give me a nice thumbs up. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram at MollyWallyWoodworking. Thanks so much for watching.